Everybody's doing channels, but why? Should you seek them out or avoid them completely? They do come with quirks which you should know about before you order channels on your surfboard. Let me explain. Now there are actually different types of channels, so of course we're going to cover the different types of channels as we talk about if you should have channels or not. Channels, of course, are the grooves in the board, usually near the tail, that are intended to direct the flow of the water down through the back of the board, offering drive and stability. And whilst they do come with many advantages, they don't suit every surfer or every wave situation, so we're going to cover some of that too. What happens with these grooves is when the board is starting to slip, it actually has this tiny little wall that creates a force, so it works a little bit like a fin. They say that for an average sort of 4-channel board, the channels will be equivalent to something like 1/3 of a fin. So in the case of this single fin board, these channels might give it a little bit more grip, like as if it had side bites. But they're not going to work in every type of wave. They're actually not ideally suited to small sloppy waves. They tend to come alive when you have clean waves and good waves, and especially if you want to go really fast in a straight line. When we're talking about channels, we also have to consider the tail shape. I'm going to show you some different tail shapes today. This one is a diamond tail because it's shaped like a diamond, and what this offers is a slightly pulled in tail, so we still have control, but it's a bit wider than a pin tail, so we have that surface area which creates contact with the water and gives you more lift. So this board here, from my testing, and I've ridden plenty of boards, well over 100 boards, and I do use a GPS watch, this board is the fastest board I've ever surfed at 41.7 kilometers an hour, and it's a twin fin, offering obviously less drag because it doesn't have that center fin, and it has these channels from about 2 feet from the tail through to the back of the board, and it works on really big fat waves. And so this tail combined with these channels is really fast from my own experience. And today, this is a really important point. I'm going to be talking about my experience, the way they feel to me, because one thing's for certain, when you start researching channel bottoms, you're going to find that there are some wildly different theories on how they work, why they work, if they work. So I'm just sharing my experience. And this tail here, a diamond shaped channel bottom twin, is probably a good combo if you want to go really fast. Where the channel is going to make a big difference to how it feels. So if you have a look at this board here, the channel doesn't start at the back, it actually starts here, which is at about the halfway point, and this is called a belly channel. And this belly channel starts right in the middle of this concave, and it goes all the way back through, and then you start adding extra channels out the back. So we've got 4 channels, but this central channel goes right through, and what this does, it feels like it kind of slots in. There's a point where you're on the wave, and when the water finds this, it kind of jumps in a way and it slots in and then leaps forward, and it's creating this acceleration effect, the lift. And then as it gets faster and faster, it spreads itself out, and you'll find a board like this is going to be incredibly quick. What it could mean though is it's not going to be able to turn as easily because you've got more friction sideways, and that's why in very small waves you'll often find a board that's just got a plain bottom and maybe a little bit of V is going to pivot side to side more easily than a board like this. So they call this being tracky. This board is a little more tracky, but once you lock in, it's not going to slip or slide, which you can sometimes have happen to you with a single fin. Have a look where the channels start on this board. Of course, this is a fish with a swallowtail, and these boards usually excel in the smaller to medium wave range, and in this particular fish, the channels are right at the end. So this is just a little 4-channel setup, and it's all happening just starting where the fins are and then back. And what this does, again, of course, it offers that extra grip, and it's changed the way this surfboard surfs, because what I noticed with this board, which is different to my other fish outline, which is a smooth bottom, is it wants slightly smaller fins than my other board because it's getting grip from the channels. And what that means is a little bit less friction, because in a straight line, there's not much friction. When you start turning, there's a little more friction, and so it needs smaller fins, and it makes it very fast and responsive, and because these channels are right down the back, it's not really hindering its ability to turn in this part of the board, so it's still a very maneuverable board. Compared that to the fish with no channels, there's no grip happening other than the fins, so that's why you need bigger fins on a traditional fish shape. And this board is going to then, now it starts becoming more tracky because of the fin, not because of the channels. So channels, I guess, are a nice way to get a looser feel as long as they're only towards the back of the tail and not halfway down the board. So the smaller the waves that your board is designed to surf, the more you might consider not having channels. In terms of the different types of channels, the most common one you'll see are the 4 channels. I think because they're a good combination of effective, they're not over the top, difficult or complex to manufacture compared to 6 or 10 channels, and they just work really well. So the vast majority of channels you'll see will be 4 channels, and they'll be starting a couple of feet back from the tail of the board. But there are other types of channels. This type of channel is a single channel, so it's just one slot. And what that really does, it creates a little bit of extra tail rocker and a little bit more lift, and you've got that bit of hold, so you can have a medium size or a half keel fin in a board like this, and it's still going to turn really well because it's not got too much going on. I'm sure it's probably slightly easier for the shapers to make, and I have plenty of boards with this setup, and it seems like the perfect compromise between the maneuverability and ease of surfing of no channel board, but with that hold and speed of a channel board. So I really like this setup a lot. You'll see this a lot on the Campbell design boards. Here's a Lovelace board, and you can see a variation of that single channel. It starts fairly early, almost halfway down the board, and it starts to go into this little arced pattern. And I think what's happening here, firstly, it's very subtle. It's not a tough edge at all. It's probably creating a very subtle little bit of stability, and then it sort of fades out as the tail rolls in its rocker there. And so you've got the subtle effect. Also on a board like this, very unusual, the twins are much closer together and they're far more upright in terms of their cant, and it just works. This does not catch or feel grabby at all. It actually surfs like a fast single fin. Hard to explain, but this very subtle arced channel, I think it's letting the water release without a hard edge, so you can't actually feel the channel on this, you just feel the speed and the maneuverability. And we have to talk about the aesthetics. I mean, let's face it, nothing looks cooler than some channels, really. Look at these beautiful channels here. These are quite aggressive channels, and this is more of a step-up board, so it really wants to hold. This board also has close together fins and a pointier tail, so it doesn't need a huge fin. And these really aggressive channels just let it lock in. This is a lock in and go board. They start fairly early as well, so you're not going to do as massive turns on it, but you're going to get the sensation of speed like a Formula One car. It just locks in and wants to go. But they do look beautiful. If your board has really massive fins like this, Thomas, you don't need channels. That would just be overkill. It's just nice and plain, water's running through here, and these fins are going to capture all that hold that you want and drive. So that would just be too much. Sometimes less is more, and so on a big long fish with keels, channels are not going to be something you see very often at all. We should talk about cost. It does cost more to order a board with channels. Usually they could add $50, $80, $100, $120 to the build. This board here used to have fixed fins, and it got completely destroyed in a motorcycle accident, and it got rebuilt with boxes. But if it had channels, then it would have been an even more complicated repair. So just keep in mind that there's going to be an additional expense to channels, and that's not always warranted. Some manufacturers are going to suggest different fins. So for example, Glaston fins are quite common with channels because it's easier to place them. Some people want FCS1 fins, and other ones will only have futures as long as there's 4 boxes. When I originally ordered this board, I ordered it with channels, but later the shaper asked me if I wanted 5 fins. And I said, well, yes, that would actually be good. I'd like to try it as a quad. But when you add the 5 fins, you actually delete the channels because they can't manage the fins around the channels. So most of my boards have futures, and that's why most of them end up with 4 channels, because you can fit futures with 4, But when you start going to 6 channels and 10 channels, and there are single fin 10 channel boards out there that look absolutely amazing, you're going to find sometimes the fins are going to be more restricted in terms of what you can order, so be mindful of that. So are channels a gimmick? No, they're not. Are they a good idea? Well, yes, if you're surfing really good waves, if you like going fast, if big turning is not so important to you, then channels from the belly back are amazing. If you do like to do turns or you're starting to surf in smaller waves, then consider more subtle channels. And if you're groveling and on a fun board or a short fish sort of board, then you probably don't need channels at all. They're just going to get in the way and they're going to add extra expense for no good reason. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please comment below, let me know, have you tried a board with channels and what's been your experience?